Today on Peacekeeping around the world, we'll be talking about the UN Peacekeeping Envoy in Rwanda during the Rwanda Genocide.
Yes, but before we do that, we have to understand that the UN peacekeepers were in Rwanda before the genocide. Isn't that right, Alysha?
Yes, Erin. Before the genocide started in April of 1994, UN peacekeepers were in Rwanda to help implement the Arusha Accords, a peace agreement between the Rwandan government and Rwanda Patriotic Front, signed in August of 1993. This was the start of the United Nations Assistant Mission for Rwanda, which lasted from October 1993 to March 1996.
Yes, but the UN peacekeepers were in Rwanda before October 1993, as they were there from June 1993 to September 1994 on the Uganda border, making sure no military assistance were given across it. This was called United Nations Observer Mission Uganda, Rwanda.
Sadly, both of those missions took a much different turn than was expected, as the Rwandan genocide started.
Reasons the UN was so reluctant to send backup to the troops on the ground was because of the events starting off the genocide, with the Rwandan president's plane being shot down and then a day later 10 Belgian UN soldiers being brutally murdered.
The UN's reluctancy was an absolute nightmare for General Romeo Dallaire. He asked for 4,500 troops, but they only sent him 2,548. Some were not trained nor armed. He asked for $220 million for his original operation in Rwanda, but instead they gave him $54 million. In Dallaire's eyes, it was clear from the beginning the UN had put Rwanda on a low list of things to do.
This was a man who was on his phone every day of the Rwanda genocides with the UN asking for backup. The same man who also took phone calls for citizens on the street asking him to send peacekeepers to help their families. In some cases, he would hear gunshots and the line would go dead.
This would have been very mentally straining for many reasons, but Dallaire still fought on, doing what he could for Rwanda, although some believe Dallaire and the other UN peacekeepers' efforts were not best served.
Some of the criticism they included one first-hand account from Halina Nitswinia, who said, "We could not believe that the United Nations was just going to let us die. We were always hearing on the radio how they were there to help us. But when the killers were looking us in the eye and saying we were going to die, what did they do? It saved the white people." She also said the last time they saw the UN soldiers was when they left, saving white people.
Halina isn't the only one who feels the UN could have done more, for the UN believes that they didn't do their part. In April 2016, Colin Keating said, "Remember the victims, the almost 1 million who died, and the survivors." This briefing also provides a fitting opportunity for me in my capacity as former president of the Council to apologize for what we failed to do in 1994, and for what to be formally recognized in the official records of the Security Council, when addressing the UN Security Council 20 years after the events of the Rwandan genocide.
It was during the same address in the UN Security Council Keating said, "Years later, you are still dealing with the consequences in the DRC." The failure in Rwanda in 1994 caused not only the genocide, but it also led to an appalling humanitarian catastrophe in eastern DRC in 1995. And this led directly to the civil war in the DRC and the human tragedy on an even more massive scale. So not only does the UN feel guilty for the lack of effort with the Rwanda genocide, they also feel guilty for what is currently happening and has been happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Now that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening and tune in next week.